When Ellen died, I lost everything. Until that dog arrived on my doorstep. A final gift from my wife. In that moment, I received some semblance of hope. And your son took that from me. Stole that from me. Killed that from me! People keep asking if I'm back, and I haven't really had an answer. But now, yeah, I'm thinking I'm back. Operation.
We don't need bigger knife.
Welcome to Now Playing's John Wick retrospective series.
To him, this isn't vengeance. This is justice.
Hosted by Justin.
You wanted me back. I'm back.
Jason.
Are you here on business, sir?
Afraid so, Francis.
And Arnie.
You look good. And here I'd feared you'd left all this behind.
These podcasts contain detailed plot spoilers and harsh language.
So I guess you have a choice. You want a war? Or do you want to just give me a gun?
Listener discretion is advised.
We're not going in like the old days. It's just a conversation.
Nothing's ever just a conversation with you, John.
We're killing strangers so we don't kill the ones who we love.
Today we're discussing Ballerina, starring Ana de Armas, Angelica Houston, Gabriel Byrne, Lance Reddick, Norman Reedus, with Ian McShane and Keanu Reeves. Directed by Len Wiseman. Maybe. This is the Now Playing co-host who fights like a girl, Arnie.
I'm Jason.
This is the Baba Yaga, Justin.
So welcome back again to the John Wick retrospective series. Our schedule's been in a little bit of upheaval. If I knew then what I knew now, we would have reviewed the Continental just last week. But we reviewed the Continental like a month ago, and now we are back again in the world of Wick with an interquel taking place around the time of John Wick 3 before John Wick 4.
Did you just make that term up? Intercool?
No, I can't take credit for that.
All right, I like it.
They are just trying to franchise this. In addition to this, I know I saw there is a new documentary out for John Wick movies. Jason, I think you watched Wick is Pain.
I did. I watched Wick is Pain for this review, and it's very well done. It is a lot of new interviews, real lengthy interviews. They sit down, Keanu Reeves, Chad Stahelski, the producers, the stunt team, you name it. It's largely about the making of the first one. That is the first hour. It's a 2-hour documentary, so it's about the length, almost, of a Wick movie. It's a lot of focus on stunt work. That's obviously because that's where these guys came from. There is no mention of Ballerina. Obviously, there's no mention of the Continental. I think we'd all kind of easily forget about that. But watching it, you get a real clear understanding of the creative core behind the franchise. I'll name the people involved. That, you know, there's Keanu Reeves, there's Chad Stahelski, there's producer Basil Ewanik, I hope I'm pronouncing his name right, producer Erica Lee, and there's a guy named Jason Constantine. He was the co-president of Lionsgate. He passed away recently, like within the last couple of weeks. These are the kind of the core people that I'm talking about. So all these key people that are involved in kind of the creation of the Wick franchise, they are also names, and I looked for them, names of people to be involved with Ballerina. That gives me confidence. The only red flag for me, the only name that didn't belong in this conversation was Len Wiseman.
Yeah, we'll get to him in a second. Now, you mentioned some names involved. I'm curious, though. I want to see Wick is Pain. I have not had time yet. There are two names you didn't mention that I'm wondering if they were involved and if you could tell me why they're no longer involved. If you remember, John Wick was kind of co-directed, maybe this film was too, by Chad Stahelski and then David Leitch, who would go off to do the Deadpool movies and a lot of other stuff. And they were written by Derek Kolstad, who was a writer up through part 3 and is now writing the very John Wickish Nobody films. Nobody 2's coming out. But he's not involved with John Wick 4 or with Ballerina. Does it say, like, why those guys stepped away?
It doesn't necessarily say why Kolstad stepped away. The people that you mentioned, I should have also mentioned the production company. You'll notice the logo, 87 North, formerly 8711. That's where Stahelski and Leitch, all these guys are kind of came from. They started their stunt company, and now it's, you know, a big production company. Leitch, they do go into it in the documentary, how he and Stahelski had a kind of a tough time, even though they were great friends, getting along during the John Wick production, and it did create a bit of a rift. I think the way that they parted, they're both acknowledging that, hey, we're friends, but we have some different creative directions that we'd like to go in our lives. And Leach did pretty great for himself. We know that he went to do Atomic Blonde, and you mentioned Deadpool 2, and I think Hobbs and Shaw, The Fall Guy, which to me is the most underrated film of 2024. Kolstad, right, he's interviewed all throughout the documentary. He did the first three, but as we'll discuss, he's not the screenwriter here for Ballerina. This was a spec script that got turned into a John Wick property.
It's funny because, like you said, a lot of times when creatives break up like this, they cite creative differences. I wonder if this time it was creative similarities. They wanted to go do other projects that were exactly the same as what they were already doing together.
The way they talk about it in the documentary is that after John Wick hit, Lionsgate says that we don't want to wait 6 years. The audience will have moved on. We want to get a sequel moving. And what the sequel, John Wick Chapter 2, was 2017. It was almost 3 years after the first one. But what happened was Leach was really into Atomic Blonde. He didn't want to do Wick 2 right away. And Stahelski did. And that's where they separated.
Yeah, a far different future because, John Wick came out in 2014 and almost went direct to video. I know that came out as part of this documentary. And we wouldn't be talking about Ballerina, I think, had that Keanu film gone direct to video. But instead, we started our retrospective series with John Wick Chapter 2. I can't believe it was 8 years ago that we did John Wick Chapter 2, and we've just been covering John Wick sporadically ever since.
Yeah, it's crazy.
I mean, I think I mention it every time we talk about one of these movies that, like, they just come up and it feels so quick, but you look back and it's like, this has been going on for almost a decade now. And it's like, where is the time gone in this John Wick universe?
Right. And nothing but momentum. Each movie, critically, it's better than the last, and box office, better than the last. It keeps going and going and going. We're going to enter a different era here now because spin-offs, sidequels, those are not the same guarantee.
No, but they did spend quite a bit on this, as you did mention, Jason. In 2017, writer Shay Hatton watched the trailer for John Wick Chapter 2 and said, I could write a movie like that. So he did, called Ballerina, and at that time, he was working for Team Downey, which is Robert Downey Jr. and Downey Jr.'s wife with the production company. Hatton wrote a script I really want to see made. I need this film. It's called Maximum King, and it is a movie that is all about Stephen King making Maximum Overdrive.
Oh, that could be fun.
Give me that movie.
Did you see Saturday Night? They could make a great movie like the Saturday Night Live movie about Stephen King making Maximum Overdrive. I'd love that.
I want that movie with Stephen King coked out of his mind, walking down the median of a highway with a bottle of Listerine to get his alcohol fix in. I want this movie.
Oh, who's going to play Emilio?
I want the inspiration for the Green Goblin head, right? Where did that come from?
Right. We know what it is, how it came to be.
So he also did write Ballerina, and in 2017, that got rewritten to be a John Wick film. And so the stuff we saw with the Ballerina and Angelica Houston, all in John Wick Chapter 3 back in 2019, was all tying into this spec script and this universe building. And out of that, Hatton has written stuff that actually got made before this. He was credited as a writer of John Wick 3 and 4. He also has worked a lot with Zack Snyder. He co-wrote Army of the Dead and Army of Thieves and Rebel Moon 1 and 2. So, kind of a mixed bag there.
Yeah, I haven't seen the Rebel Moons. When I think back to Army of Dead and Army of Thieves, I don't think too much about the screenplay, but more about the Zack Snyder action of it.
Yeah, he has a penchant for getting involved with bigger name IPs, but yeah, as far as like a resume, I can't say that he has anything that stands out yet.
And he did write and produce the I Know What You Did Last Summer TV series. We're going to be reviewing that for silver level donors coming up in just a few weeks. So we're going to be seeing more from this guy. But his Ballerina script got on that blacklist of the best unmade scripts before it was picked up by 87 North Productions. And then in 2019, they're like, we got our director. We know who we want. We want the guy who fucked up Total Recall and the guy who fucked up Die Hard. Len Wiseman.
Total Recall and Live Free or Die Hard, you're making these movies in the shadow of iconic films. In the case of Total Recall, I don't know how you get out from under that shadow, the shadow of Verhoeven and Schwarzenegger there. But in the end, that film for me, I liked the visuals. Story-wise, it just kind of felt lifeless. And lifeless, I think, is a way that I could describe a lot of my feeling toward Len Wiseman's movies.
He must be just a great guy to hang out with, because didn't he get started in like the effects department and just maybe people just like being around him? It's like, oh yeah, direct our next movie or whatever.
He was a property assistant and then did some music videos and got a Best Art Direction VMA award for Stick 'em Up.
Oh boy.
What I think is interesting is that they turn to Wiseman rather than turning to some of the stunt guys that have become directors. And there are plenty of movies out there that we could name right now that these directors are following in the footsteps of Stahelski and Leach. The one that jumps out immediately to me is a guy named Sam Hargrave who does the Extraction movies for Netflix. When you say Len Wiseman, I'm trying to justify why they would bring him in other than he was available. And I was thinking that maybe, he did Underworld. I'm not a fan, but it was a hit franchise with a female lead. Everybody knows that female-fronted action movies are a tough sell. And in the last decade, really after John Wick, we have gotten a ton of them. There's been Ava, Canary Black, Peppermint, Kate, and really Atomic Blonde is the one that's made the most impact. And as we discussed, that's from David Leitch. I think knowing that a female-fronted action movie is a tough sell is part of the reason we'll be discussing John Wick, Keanu Reeves a lot in this movie. But best case scenario, John Wick Chapter 3.5. Worst case scenario, Elektra.
Yeah, that could go either way. It hasn't gone so well lately, though. I mean, the one that kept coming to mind for me was Furiosa, where we tried this game just last year of having kind of an interquel with a minor character who was introduced. I mean, Furiosa was actually a pretty major character in Fury Road, but getting a different actress who was kind of buzzworthy to be the female lead of a franchise that had had 4 installments of male action, and Furiosa disappointed at the box office. The movie is what the movie is, but it didn't make much money.
Yeah. Well, Wiseman is credited here as the director, but if rumors are to be believed, it sounds like so much reshooting was done on this movie by Stahelski that I'm not even sure if the credit still goes to Wiseman.
Yeah, thanks Ian McShane for loose lips sinking those ships, because they shot this film in 2022 to 2023, but then Ian McShane comes out and says, oh yeah, we have to come back and do a lot more shooting, this is in 2024, to, quote, protect the franchise. That Chad Stahelski is going to be doing some new shots. Officially, this was referred to as, quote, additional action sequences, but they also say it was 1 to 3 months of reshoots.
Yeah, that phrase, protect the franchise, is so funny in this context, considering the backstory of this movie, because it was originally written not as a John Wick thing at all. So why are we at a point now where we have a movie shot and we're protecting a franchise that this movie wasn't even intended to be a part of? But hey, that's Hollywood, I guess, and that's where we are.
Now, I'm sure that they saw the potential in having Ana de Armas here as their female action hero as part of the John Wick universe, and I'm sure that they did not want it to get messed up. It's so funny because the filmmakers right now, they're out doing press for the movie, and they are getting these questions about the reshoots. And so you're going to hear things, and then you're going to hear a conflicting thing, and what you hear is not what you heard 3 years ago. Wiseman, in an interview that I read that was published this week, says the studio loved the movie so much, they said go back and shoot some more. But actually, you know what? We'll talk about it when we get into it, what sequences were scripted and not filmed, and then filmed as part of the additional photography. And then we'll most definitely talk about the sequences in which John Wick is, I'm going to use the word, inserted into this movie.
But he was announced back in November 2022. He was always part of the shooting for this movie. We'll never know how much was shot in 22 versus 23 versus 24, but what I did find out is that in February 2024, when Stahelski was doing this additional shooting, they announced 2 new cast members who play pretty big parts. David Castaneda, who is Javier, Eve's father in the film, and then Sharon Duncan Brewster, who's Nogi, the trainer in the film, were added characters as of the Stahelski reshoots.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's published, it's out there that the opening sequence, we'll talk about the origin sequence with Eve's father, the actor that you just mentioned, Arnie, that was scripted and not originally filmed during principal photography. That's part of additional photography. The second person you mentioned, the actress, part of me feels like they need a character in that Ruska Roma room who's a little bit younger, who could carry on the leader position, as Angelica Houston, is an older actress. She may not be around forever.
I had the exact opposite thought. I'm like, oh, Angelica Houston isn't available for reshoots? Okay, you're now Angelica Houston's side person.
Okay.
That was my thinking.
Somebody else to give some exposition.
So are you suggesting that maybe she was green screened into the background when there was an actual shot of Angelica Houston and her?
Possible.
It is possible.
We live in a cynical world.
And yes, Ana de Armas is our star here. Her third time teaming up with Keanu Reeves. I did see a long time ago their first pairing, Knock Knock, which I guess is just hated. I remember not minding it as a home invasion kind of sexy thriller film.
Yeah, Knock Knock, that's when she first came on my radar too. I'm surprised that you heard people hate it. For me, the people that I've discussed with it, they're scared of it in the way that Fatal Attraction would scare men in the 1980s. If you don't know this film, it's with Ana de Armas and the young actress Lorenza Izzo, and they come to Keanu's house. He's a married guy whose wife's out of town, and then they seduce him, and then they torture him and play all these games with him. And you go through the movie trying to decide in your head what's worse, my wife finding out about this affair with these two young women, or them torturing me and killing me. And by the end, you might go for the latter.
Lorenza Izzo, we discussed her. She was the star of Eli Roth's The Green Inferno.
Right.
And Eli Roth made Knock Knock. So I think they were married for a little while there, those two. I think we discussed that with Green Inferno. But yeah, that's when Ana de Armas first worked with Keanu. I did not even know about her second film with him called Exposed in 2016. I hadn't heard of that.
It didn't get a wide release. I only skipped through it in the swim lanes on streaming services when I see it, and it's got the two of them on the cover. I haven't watched it. You seen it, Justin?
No, and I was about to say, Ana de Armas only came on my radar with Knives Out. That's the first thing I remember seeing her in, and really enjoyed her in that.
That's the funny thing is, even though she was in Blade Runner 2049 and she was in War Dogs and she was in Knock Knock, I didn't pay attention to her until she was Marta in Knives Out. Then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, when I watched Knives Out, I thought she was really well cast because everybody else was famous and I didn't know her. Even though I'd seen stuff with her in it, to me, she was like the nobody in that, which made sense why she'd be the maid and all of the famous people would be the rich family.
Mm-hmm.
I thought she was really great in that in a breakout role, but she'd been acting for over a decade at that point. And then, yeah, she'd go on from that to No Time to Die.
Yeah, No Time to Die, a lot of people would say, is the audition for the Ballerina, even though the filmmakers kind of deny that in the interviews that they've done. One last thing I'll say about Ana de Armas, I really like her in this Adrian Lyne movie called Deepwater. It's with Ben Affleck. If you haven't seen it, if you've ever fallen for somebody who's like a walking red flag, you might enjoy that movie.
Who hasn't been there?
But I had all the confidence in the world that she'd be able to pull off this action stuff. What I was unsure of is whether or not she'd get overshadowed by putting John Wick into the movie.
But it could have been somebody else. I remember when John Wick 3 came out, they were saying that the person who was on stage there, Unity Felon, was going to be the star of Ballerina. I don't know if that was ever really a thought. That was kind of being said, but she's just a ballet dancer who's done a little of acting, but I don't know that she could carry a franchise spin-off.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely not.
There were rumors early on, and this might have been back before it was even reconfigured to be in the John Wick universe, but there was talk that Lady Gaga was attached to this project as the main character. So, yeah, this whole thing is a long, sordid history to get us to where we are now.
So I did go and see this Thursday night. This movie's a little longer than I expected it to be, at a little over 2 hours. I guess that messed with my theater showing times because usually I've been going to a theater called Flicks for all of our reviews, and it's like clockwork, 6:45 Thursday night, new movie. I didn't buy my tickets in advance. I didn't think I'd have to, but because of the length of this movie, they were showing it at 6, and I'm like, oh crap, I missed that. So I ended up going to a different theater's 7 o'clock showing, and I wanted to see it in IMAX. I had thought I'd seen trailers that said this would be in IMAX, but no, Mission Impossible is clinging to those IMAX screens.
Just for a little bit longer, then next week they'll be taken by How to Train the Dragon there.
Yeah, I'm surprised. It was only Mission Impossible in IMAX by me. I remember the weekend Mission Impossible came out, it was sharing it with Lilo and Stitch. But now, Lilo is relegated to the smaller screens too, and it's just Tom Cruise flashing that $1 million smile on the 200-foot screen. But I saw this in a Dolby Cinema showing, and it was pretty empty until right about showtime. I literally thought I might have like a private screening, and then a 70-year-old couple shuffled in, and I'm like, oh boy, this is not looking great. But then finally, like as the trailers start, about 20 people in total come in, all ages, all genders, and by all ages, I mean like literally right behind me sat a family of 4 with like their 4 and 6-year-old children who brought a blanket.
Oh.
And I'm like, oh God, they're talking through the trailers, they're talking through everything. I'm like, they're going to talk this whole... No, they fell asleep, I think, for the whole movie.
I hope so. They don't need to be seeing this crap on that age.
When tickets are cheaper than babysitters.
Exactly.
That's true.
My schedule's been kind of weird lately, so I didn't go see this until Friday morning. I went to the 11:45 showing on Friday morning, and they have it in digital, no IMAX, and the one I went to go see was on one of the smaller screens, but I was surprised for an 11:45 a.m. screening. There was probably about 25 people in the theater with me, and I was like, doesn't anybody around here work? What are we doing here on Friday morning at the Ballerina? But it was mostly dudes our age, to be honest with you. It was just a bunch of middle-aged guys apparently jacked up to see this. Maybe seeing it for the second time because I saw it last night too, who knows? But I was surprised by how many people were actually there.
I ended up going at about noon on Friday. The theater was a little more than half full, I'd say. It wasn't a super huge theater. It was a good mixed crowd. It was a solid turnout for Ballerina.
Yeah, it's not predicted to do super well. The budget is somewhere in the neighborhood of 90 million and then a big advertising spend, but they're only looking at getting about 25 million to 28 million for the weekend, which is about the same as Furiosa and about the same as Alita Battle Angel.
Oh, neither of those you want to compare them to, no. I guess the real question is here, how is this going to fit into the Wick universe? Is this going to do the job of growing the Wick universe? That's really, in the end, all that matters. If this hits, even if it's a modest hit, they may consider moving forward with more Ana de Armas. They are definitely moving forward with more John Wick, but first we got to get through Ballerina. So, Arnie, why don't you give them the plot?
There was a plot?
Well, I mean, somebody wrote this.
Yeah, but somebody wrote Backdoor Sluts 9 also, but I don't know that I need a plot summary for it.
Well, of course not. If you'd seen 1 through 8, you really know what's happening. What are they going to surprise you with?
Sheer numbers.
It's like Stahelski thinking of new action sequences for every movie. That's the same thing that Billy Walsh does for Backdoor 9.
12 years before John Wick 3, a young girl named Eve goes on the run with her father Javier, a former assassin for a death cult. When the cult, led by the Chancellor, played by Gabriel Byrne, tracks them down, Javier is killed, but Eve escapes. Winston Scott, played by Ian McShane, brings Eve to the Ruscaroma, where she trains to be a dancer and Kikimora assassin, under Ruscaroma leader The Director, played by Angelica Houston, and assassin trainer Nogi, played by Sharon Duncan Brewster. Years later, Eve spots a cult assassin and seeks revenge, but is warned against it by the Director due to a truce between the cult and the Ruscaroma. Eve turns to Winston, who tips her off about a cult member hiding out at the Continental in Prague. There she meets Daniel Pine, played by Norman Reedus, a former cultist trying to protect his daughter. The cult seemingly kills Daniel and kidnaps his daughter Ella. Eve tracks them to Hallstatt, Austria, a town full of cultists, where she's captured and learns the cult leader Lena, played by Catalina Sandino Moreno, is her long-lost sister. The Chancellor tries to kill them both, but Eve survives and sets out for revenge. The Chancellor threatens war with the Ruscaroma unless Eve is stopped, so the Director sends John Wick, played by Keanu Reeves. Wick is sympathetic to Eve's vengeance and gives Eve until midnight to kill the Chancellor. She tears through the cult with guns, swords, knives, and flamethrowers, kills the Chancellor, and rescues Ella. Daniel turns out to somehow be alive, and Eve reunites him with Ella, but a $5 million bounty is placed on her head as she disappears into the night, and credits roll.
See, there was a plot there somewhere and all that.
There were a lot more explosions than there were story beats.
Well, that's something that I thought about going in, is what is going to do this for me? Is it going to be the action, or am I going to really need to get sucked into this story and feel something for this character, Eve? They try at the beginning because we get the whole being raised by dad, but here comes the bad guys for dad plot.
And you say that this was always planned for the script, but not actually shot?
Yes, it was scripted, not shot during principal photography because they didn't have enough time or the budget for it, and it was made up for in additional photography.
Because this takes up quite a bit of the beginning of this movie that felt like it kind of moved a little slow. We do get a good action scene in here, but before we know anything about these characters, there's some lip service about a sister that she doesn't remember, and mom's not around, and he's a good dad on the beach and all this stuff. But next thing you know, they're in the middle of a battle royale in this castle.
Right, and I think, maybe they wanted to start the movie with a big action sequence first, but there are things here that I was like, I need to pay attention to. They're probably going to come back. Obviously, we're going to get introduced to the villains, so they're going to come back, but I'm thinking about the conversation she's having with the father. She mentions a sister. I'll say this right now, I forgot about that afterwards. I did not think that the sister was going to become a thing. I thought maybe the mother would become a thing, because it's going to be one of those,
I'm the same way. I forgot completely that there was a sister mentioned until the sister comes back. I was wondering who the mother was, but this opening is reminding me a little bit of the opening of the first John Wick, where we had kind of the montage of the death of his wife and dealing with that trauma. Here, we get something similar with just a brief scene of the girl dancing ballet on the beach. We know the guy's an assassin because he's got the back tats and everything.
Well, not only does he have the back tats, but is it a coincidence that they kind of cut this dude's hair and his beard to look a little bit like John Wick?
Yeah, it kind of felt like the trick they did with the Continental, too. When we met Frankie, that first scene, it was like, oh, is this our new John Wick kind of character? But nope, he gets dispatched. And we meet the Chancellor, Gabriel Byrne. And I forgot he was in this movie, to be honest with you. I didn't look at the cast list. And I gotta say, the older he gets, the more he's starting to look like Ian McShane. And seriously, I was a little confused. I was like, whoa, did they recast Ian McShane? I was like, what is going on here?
I didn't know Gabriel Byrne was in this. I also wasn't paying close attention to the casting, and I didn't recognize him at first. I did a little bit later in the film, but I haven't seen Gabriel Byrne since 2005's Assault on Precinct 13. I looked him up, he's still acting, but it's literally been 20 years since his last project that I've seen. So in my notes, I said, guy who looks like old Crispin Glover comes in.
Oh! To me, the Wick universe is like a prestige hall for what I'll call like character actor greats, or maybe underrated character actors that we love. Clancy Brown in the last one. Remember Peter Stormare, Franco Nero in Chapter 2. It's about time they got around to Gabriel Byrne, is what I'm saying. This is great work for a character actor. You can shine, and if you find the right ones, they fit in this world. It's not like other franchises with the stunt cast. It's not like Fast and Furious, where Cardi B is going to show up. You know what I mean? My thing here with Gabriel Byrne is I'm trying to understand his character. He's not very different from Gabriel Byrne in Assault on Precinct 13 or Gabriel Byrne in End of Days or any other time he's been playing a villain. It's just this time he's doing a different accent.
Yeah, and I mean, I like Gabriel Byrne. He's a good actor. He's been in a ton of stuff, but he'll always be the guy from Usual Suspects to me, because that's the movie I've seen the most with him in it.
Which is a great role, and he's so great in it doing that movie. Unfortunately for me, a lot of Gabriel Byrne memory goes back to Cool World, and I don't want that.
But yeah, the father is given a choice here. Gabriel Byrne finally captures him, and he gives him a gun with a bullet in it, and he gives him the choice. He can either kill himself and let his daughter live, or he can kill him and everybody dies. As he's about ready to make the choice, it looks like he's going to put the gun to his own head. The daughter makes a noise from behind the bookshelf, and that gives him just enough of an opening to kick off another fight scene. We're right back in the action.
Yeah, I thought the daughter was going to yell, Murph! That's all I think about when I see somebody behind a bookshelf is, Murph! Murph! But no, she yells, Papa! And the action here, to be honest, I was a little bit shocked when I found out after the fact that they got an actor David Castaneda. I'm sure I'm not saying that exactly right, but I'm close. They got an actor for that role because I thought for sure they just got a stunt guy. You're doing a lot of flips, you're doing a lot of gun fu. Bring in somebody from the Stahelski stunt crew to do this. But this guy has been acting in TV and film. He was part of the main cast of Umbrella Academy. I watched a few episodes of that, but didn't get deep into it. I couldn't just get into that show. But the fights here are solid. I'm loving when the guys are coming out of the water and using crossbow bolts to attack guards. Now, I have no idea how this father, Javier, escaped a death cult, but has enough money to have a castle with guards on 24/7.
An island.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We don't get a lot of explanation for this.
I guess cult assassination is a good line of work if you can get it.
But it is just fun action going on here. After the Continental, I was happy to see theatrical stunts again, you know, because I felt like the Continental kept trying for this. And right away, I'm like, okay, this is as good as John Wick action.
Yes, and you mentioned the actor doing the stunts himself. That's a big focus of the Wick is Pain documentary. They really kind of drive home, especially with Keanu, how he does all the stunts. I think that's a real difference maker in this series. We see the actors performing their own stunts. It's not like it's completely uncommon because, you know, we live in the era of Tom Cruise doing another Mission Impossible right now. But when John Wick fights, we see that it's Keanu Reeves. And in this movie with these main actors, when they fight, we're going to see it's them.
I just don't understand the very ending of this fight because they obviously have to kill the father. The father has this claymore that he can set a 30-second timer on. They're running out of the house, but he has like this glass partition in his house, wavy glass that you can't quite see through, but somebody shoots through it and gets the father in the gut a couple of times so he can have a dramatic death with his little daughter. I gotta say, I'm also really impressed with the camera work in this film. When they have this death, it may be a little melodramatic, it may be a little bit on the nose, but they're shooting during the magic hour. It's supposed to be sunrise. The little girl's looking, the colors, the high angle shots. I'm really liking the lighting and the score and the look of this film. It's a little cliche, you know, it's not like nobody ever thought to do this before, but it's pretty on a big screen and giving me enough of what I need.
And it was part of the additional photography, so we know that it was when Stahelski came in to shoot more stuff.
Yeah. So this is all just prelude, right? Like, this isn't our main story. This is going to lead us up to who our main character is. But before we can get her all grown up, we have to have her rescued. So who comes in but Winston himself? Is she at a hospital outside the principal's office? I'm not sure where she's sitting here.
I thought she was at the hospital, like outside of her dad's room, but he seemed to be pretty dead on that ledge on the island. And does the island have a hospital?
Yeah, she wouldn't be at the hospital.
Mm-hmm.
We should point it out. She's there holding her little ballerina snow globe or music box.
Yeah, it's kind of a snow globe music box. It's a globe. It's under glass, and it's a spinning ballerina that plays Swan Lake.
It's on the nose, but I love that. I love Swan Lake, so...
Did the father have the daughter training to be a ballerina because the father used to be Ruska Roma? Because what we're told by the Chancellor, Gabriel Byrne, is that this cult that the Chancellor runs let in their father, who was an outsider, to marry a daughter of their clan. And they said, your wife is dead to pay for your transgressions. And so he was Ruska Roma, but married into this clan of like murderous maniacs.
Scandinavians. Right. I want to be careful here. I don't want us to delve too deep or ask too many questions about this guy's background, because the last thing I want is a John Wick side story about Javier's origins.
Right.
John Wick origins, Javier.
Yeah.
We're going to find out later, by the way, that the ballerina snow globe came from the cult village. So the ballerina snow globe came from her mother's side? Then that should be an attachment to her mother, not her father.
No, I think it would be her father's side. But you're right. They were making ballerina snow globes in the village.
Mm-hmm.
The mother's part of the cult, and he's part of the Ruska Roma.
Right. And the Ruska Roma are ballerina assassins.
But the ballerina snow globe came from the cult village.
Guys, you've just unearthed my biggest problem with this movie is motivation. She's motivated by the death of her father. There's talk about her mother was killed. We have this whole ballerina tie. There's a sister. Nobody seems to give one shit about the dead mother at all. It's not motivation for anybody in this movie.
If she's not coming back in this one, she's coming back in a sequel. I don't know what to say.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe, maybe not. Maybe there won't be a sequel. We will find out, I suppose. But yeah, how does the avenging your father work compared to avenging your dog? Because in theory, avenging your father should have more oomph to it.
Right.
But I gotta say, I felt worse for John Wick's dog than I ever felt for Javier here.
Mm-hmm.
I cried the first time I saw John Wick. I remember that.
Yeah.
That's a different motivation than what is kind of a cliche motivation, the death of the parent, you know? And that's what made John Wick stand out. But here, yeah, we're getting something that I feel like we've seen before in the you killed my father, prepared to die kind of way.
Exactly. I'll preview my overall thoughts of this a little bit here, but it's so much in the motivation of these characters. With John Wick, you have the dog, sure, but also he's motivated by trying to get out of this lifestyle. That's a unique angle for a character and something that you can kind of get behind. It's like, sure, he's got to do all these terrible things, but it's for a reason. It's for a better life ahead. And this movie, her motivation seems to be, they killed my dad and she cannot wait to get into the action. So just from there, I'm having a little disconnect with getting behind these characters for those reasons.
Thank you for pointing that out, Justin, because I was trying to ask myself, what is the difference here and why don't I feel about Eve the way I feel about John Wick? And you pointed out something I didn't catch. John Wick was out of the life. He didn't want back in the life came to him, and all of those movies, all he wants is peace after avenging his wife's dog. He just wants out, and it keeps getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And here, Eve, does she even necessarily want vengeance to begin with? Winston takes her to see the director, who's played by Angelica Houston, and Angelica Houston says, your path is with us. And so she's training, but is she training to avenge her father? We never get that scene of little Eve being like, I want to kill them all. I want to avenge my father. She just seems like she's along for the ride. And then we're going to flash forward 12 years and Eve's roommate Tatiana is going to be like, why do you push yourself like this? And Eve's like, I want to be ready. And so I'm thinking that's ready for revenge, but it feels implied more than emoted.
Right, and even within the movie itself, she's not even thinking about her father until after her first mission, where she sees a scar on one of the guys that she killed that reminded her, oh, the guys who killed my dad had this scar too. So that puts her on her path for revenge. Up till then, she was just training to be an assassin.
And here's where I think we're seeing the evidence of reshoots, script rewrites, those kind of things. You know how on Now Playing we talk about the gimme, like you give me this one thing and I'll go with it, and that's what I'll give you, the movie? For me, it's Winston coming in here seemingly out of nowhere. Just, oh, Ian McShane has shown up, and now I'm going to take you into the movie where you belong, you know?
And we do get this training montage here of Eve 12 years later learning to fight, and because she's smaller, weaker, doesn't have the upper body strength of the guys around her who've trained as much. We get Nogi here saying, fight like a girl. So she kicks the guys in the balls and stomps on them when they're down.
That's how she does. That's the advantage, man. It's all about hitting guys in the dick, and you will see she does it over and over and over in this movie.
I loved when she shot a guy in the dick with a rubber bullet.
Yes. I kept watching for all the dick hits. There's a lot of them. But hey, she knows what she's doing. But this is where we get to see what it's like behind the scenes at the ballet school. And what I thought was interesting is they're training young women and men in this sort of Black Widow Red Room assassin scenario. But at the same time, they're a legit ballet school. And it seems to me it's like you can go one way or you can go the other.
But can anybody do both? Is there an actual great ballerina that's a great assassin?
I thought it was that you do both. I thought it was that you study ballet and be an assassin together at the same time. I didn't think it was one or the other.
I thought the same thing until the final scene,
Yeah, maybe. I mean, I think that was kind of the explicit reason given for why Tatiana left, is because she was a great dancer, but she didn't have the heart of a killer.
Yeah, she has this friend, Tatiana, who, as you mentioned, Justin, just doesn't have... Angelica Houston say the killer instinct? Was that her line?
Yep.
And I wondered to myself, well, does that mean that Tatiana's going to be executed? Or does she just get kicked out of school? And apparently it's the latter.
I honestly thought Tatiana was going to come back in the very next scene, because now we have Eve saying, I'm ready. And we saw the montage. She got better, just like every montage. So she was able to shoot that blonde guy who kept sneaking up behind her in the training missions. And so she has her final test. And I thought Kingsman several times during this movie, but I was definitely thinking Kingsman when your final test is you have to kill someone. I was thinking about, John Wick, you killed the dog. I was thinking about Eggsy when he had to shoot the dog as his final mission and he wouldn't do it.
Sure, yeah.
But here, we have some rando come in, and she's like, I'm a fucking test? Why is it not Tatiana? Why is it not you have to kill your friend? That seems like the exact thing you do here with the one who flunks out of the assassin school, is you kill the one that flunks out by having her best friend do it.
Right. This moment, you want to have stakes. You want it to be impactful. You want to be really challenged as a viewer looking at this saying, is she going to go through with it? In the end, she does. She does it very easily, and then that's the end of it. So we don't really feel like, oh, she's heartless, because that's what you want. You want the audience to see that your assassin, she will do it, and she will kill Tatiana, but no, she kills Rando. But Rando gets that good line, I'm you in 10 years. And you think that that line is going to land and have impact and mean something later on in the film, and we'll find out that no, there's no reference to this scene or any of it whatsoever.
Well, it kind of does, because what this scene is doing is showing that even their best and the ones that they are going to put out in the field as assassins are still just disposable to the director, right? This gal that she does kill is somebody that's been out there working all this and doing missions and whatnot, and she must have screwed up somewhere along the line, because now it's either her or the new gal are going to walk out of here. And later in the movie, the director does say, hey, if we got to kill her, let's kill her. I guess what I'm saying is this is not a school of love and puppies. This is a school for killers, and they're all expendable.
Absolutely.
The thing that I like about this scene is that it does show Eve is a little bit merciful, because Eve doesn't know what her test is. She's not told you have to kill this person. They're both sitting at a table. They each have an unassembled gun in front of them. A bullet pops up for each of them. The 10-year-older person starts putting the gun together, so Eve does in response. Eve, being the second best assassin in the world, only John Wick is better than her, is able to build the gun faster, points the gun at this woman, but does not pull the trigger until the woman tries to shoot her. She only shoots in self-defense, so we're going to be more on Eve's side than if Eve just killed this woman cold-heartedly.
Wouldn't it have been more interesting if they'd set her up as a cold-blooded killer who has to soften?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a character arc would have been very nice for this movie. Unfortunately, there isn't one.
No.
No.
Maybe go to the concession stand, see, hey, can I get a side of plot with my action?
Yeah, I mean, her motivation, like I said already, is going to be troublesome for me throughout this movie. Because after this, she's just chomping at the bit to get out there for some reason. And we get our first glimpse of John Wick. And I think they're kind of trying to intertwine this. As Arnie said, this is an interquel. So this is happening around the time John Wick went back to the director, and where he was punching out and he got his branding on the back because he was getting passage to, I can't even remember where he's going at this point. Do you guys remember where he was going? Was it off to Saudi Arabia? Was he going to see the table?
Casablanca. It's before that scene.
Right.
And I was paying close attention to this scene, and I'm sure the rest of you guys were too, because you're trying to see where this fits inside Chapter 3 Parabellum. There is the scene where Anjelica Huston is walking down some steps with Keanu Reeves. In the movie, in John Wick 3, we see for a second Keanu glances to the left. It's super brief, and it doesn't look like he's looking at anything. The filmmakers here for this movie said that we saw as our opportunity to say when he glances left, now he's looking straight on at Eve at Ballerina.
Ah, I knew they reused a little bit of footage with the cool subtitles when Anjelica Huston says, you did all this for a puppy, and John Wick says it wasn't just a puppy. I remembered that very specifically from Chapter 3. But here, this scene, we want as much Keanu in a John Wick film as you can get, I guess, but I think you could cut the scene. I really think you could cut the scene of John Wick being Yoda and being like, the front door is unlocked. It will lock faster than you think.
Yeah, you can get out. You don't have to do this. Hey, how do I get into this? Come on, let's get this going.
This isn't great dialogue. And Keanu, we know he's got a ton of control over John Wick's dialogue, and he keeps making him a man of fewer and fewer words. And his performance here all kind of comes across the same way. Like, the front door is right there.
It's like they're having two different conversations. If she would have been saying, hey, I am completely motivated to get revenge on the people who killed my dad, and John Wick saying like, hey, I get that, but if you do that, you're going to be sucked in for life. They're not having that conversation. He's saying, don't even get started. She's like, I want to get started for whatever reason. Not even motivated.
It's also a weird thing to grab a guy in a hallway and try to engage him in some deep, hey, can I have a real discussion right now about my future and my possibilities and my job prospects? Do you mind? I've never met you, but can we talk about it for a few minutes?
Hitting him up on LinkedIn.
You know when Keanu shows up in this movie because it's Ana de Armas with the rest of her ballerina friends, and then you just hear whispers, like ADR whispers that come around the theater. Baba Yaga, Baba Yaga, it's Baba Yaga, that's Baba Yaga over there.
But ultimately, it does feel like a glorified cameo here. Like, I know they're trying to immerse us into this world, but to be honest with you, it pulled me out. I was like, oh, weird, Keanu Reeves is all of a sudden on screen.
That sucks because that's the exact opposite of what they intend.
Exactly.
For you to say it pulled you out, damn.
But she does get her first mission, her first contract, and she's told, you have to go protect this princess. Her father feels competitors may try to get at him by ransoming his daughter, but you only get rubber bullets.
Yeah, John Wick Nerf edition, right?
I wanted to know, why does she only get rubber bullets? I thought for sure this was another test, and who she was fighting was going to be revealed to all be Ruska Roma, and that's why she wasn't going to kill them. And then when she gets her, like, ice pick claw hammer at the end, I'm like, oh, she's gonna murder somebody with that. And then we're gonna find out she wasn't supposed to kill anyone. That's why they give her the rubber bullets. No, I don't know to this moment why they gave her rubber bullets and not real bullets to just kill dudes.
Right.
I have no explanation other to speculate that just to make it harder or to give us some good fighting.
Yeah, very confusing. Like, this scene is very John Wickish. We're in a club, and it seems to be themed ice, so they have ice dance floors for some reason.
She's in this glamorous dress and, like, this fur stole. She looks dressed to the nines.
Oh, dude.
And so I'm like, is she at a rave? Is she at an art exhibit? Oh, she's at one of those events that only exists in the world of John Wick.
Yeah.
Well, let me jump in here from Las Vegas. These places do exist. It's not as big as this -11 club, but we have bars here in Vegas that have, -5. And it's ice themed, ice bar, ice decor, all that kind of stuff. It's very cool, but it does exist. It is a thing that's real. It's just not as big in this movie.
No, I've been to an ice bar before, but I've never been to a ice dance club with neon blue highlights everywhere. I mean, that's why I thought it was an art exhibit, is it does feel like you're walking into an art installation, but then when you get inside, there's people dancing.
Yeah, it's like Die Another Day. But let me tell you something. When she comes strutting into that bar, wearing that fur coat, I am just in awe for a second, because the way they set up the shot, that is a movie star shot. And when you see a movie star radiate on the big screen when she's in that fur coat. And I will add that I always loved the John Wick movies do a gunfight in a club where the people in the club could care less.
Right.
They are just dancing. They are not paying attention to the shooting. They know groove is in the heart. They are going to get down. And all this action is going to be happening with just a crowd paying no attention, dancing around. I love that.
Well, they knew it was rubber bullets. They were in no real danger.
I also really like that she's dressed so fashionably here. And when we see the close-up of her foot on the ice floor and she does that, like, foot slide back motion.
Yeah.
And I'm like, she's in high heels? That's not very practical. The next scene that we're going to get after this fight, she's in boots. She's in much more practical footwear. I thought it was like a lesson learned after her first mission is, oh, I need practicality with my footwear, not what looks the best.
You bring up a good point, Arnie. This lesson learned thing, this fight scene, this sequence does show that she's not super polished yet.
Yes.
She's still got the hit you in the dick move, but she got to work on a lot of other stuff.
She gets knocked down a lot. She gets hit a lot, kicked down a flight of stairs by some guys. I wish, though, that this scene mattered at all. I wish that this princess character mattered. I wish that these villains that she's fighting were vital. This is literally a side quest mission in this movie just to give us a fight. It's a cool looking fight. It's a well choreographed fight. When it comes down to her versus the leader of the guys, at first I'm like, am I supposed to know who this is? Is this a guy from a previous John Wick film? But I looked it up. The actor is not. And so it's just a cool fight where she uses rubber bullets and then, gets this ice pick that's like a claw hammer. I called it an ice pick, but it's really like what you'd use if you were rock climbing, that kind of a pick.
Sure, yeah, an axe.
Yeah, this scene is really just here as a capper for the end of the training montage, because as soon as it's over, we skip forward another 2 months or so, I think it said.
Yeah, 2 months later.
Right, side quest. It won't be the first or last time we say side quest, but you're right. Next time we see her, she is going to be an expert.
Yep, she's just finishing up.
I thought this scene was legitimately funny, though, because we see her in a bathroom wiping a little bit of blood off. We pull back a little bit from the mirror, and there's a dead guy there. She gets her knife from him. She gets a transfer of $750,000. Then the camera pulls back further. There's more bodies. She's just walking through. She's picking up all of her knives out of all of them.
There's 4 inches of water on the floor. Like, something went down. You know,
the John Wick movies always have great, memorable action sequences. Okay, the top shot in John Wick 4, you know what I mean? The stairs in John Wick 4, anything like that. So I was like, okay, what are going to be the big action sequences in this one? And it turns out the one that is my favorite is the one we don't even see. She's walking out. This is like seeing all the carnage in reverse. Everything that she did to these guys. And I love that it starts, as you described, with her pulling shrapnel out of her shoulder in a mirror. Oh, she just shredded this whole place, goes outside, and then we get my favorite shot in this movie is her, the camera pulls out, so you get a big, wide shot of this back alley street. She drives off. You think she's driving off into the sunset kind of way. And then a car or, a Range Rover or whatever comes in, smashes into her, and pushes her right back into full frame. I loved it.
I liked that shot a whole lot. It's really cool looking. It's not very real looking. I mean, it just very much felt surreal. Like, I couldn't see where the wires were, but at no point did it feel realistic. But it was cool when she's like hanging out the driver's side door as her car's being pushed at a 90-degree angle, and the other guy's hanging out the passenger side door of his truck shooting at her.
It's so good.
Yeah, it was a fun scene because, like Jason said, it lulls you into this false sense of like, that scene's over. But like, no, we get a good chance to see that this car's coming. And if you're paying attention to the top of the frame, you're like, holy cow, that car's coming awful fast. There's going to be, oh, wow, they're pushing her right back into the alley. And we get a little bit of car foo, but not enough to call it rip off of its own material.
It's an excellent use of the camera.
Yes, it was fun. And at this point, she dispatches the passenger. She gets in a little bit of a fight with the driver, breaks his arm, and ends up just putting that pickaxe through his brain.
Yeah, it's a little bit of a change because when she was saving the princess, she had that guy against the wall. She had her rock axe ice pick thing, could have killed the guy, but doesn't. And now here we are 2 months later and she's just like, fuck these guys, I'm killing them. So it does show, I guess, that she's become colder, harder, more of an assassin. But one thing that frustrates me only a little, it's just a mild irritant about this film, is it doesn't trust the audience to be smart. When we saw Little Eve picking up the shotgun to save her father in the opening, and then we see them running out, she sees this X scar or brand on this guy's wrist. And now she's going to see it on this guy in the car. They're going to actually give us the flashback of that. Earlier, when they were shooting the 10 years older her, they gave us a flashback to Little Eve shooting the shotgun to save her dad. Now they're giving us a flashback to Little Eve seeing that scar on the wrist, in case you don't remember. So they're really hand-holding here, no pun intended.
Right. Usually the John Wick movies are smarter than that. I get what you're saying. Yeah.
Yeah, it would be different if like we're supposed to remember an intricate tattoo or something, or an intricate design of a scar that she's remembering. It's an X. It's a literal X on the guy's wrist. It's not like we have trouble recognizing shapes and basic symbols.
It's a creepy scar.
But yeah, now we're halfway through this movie, and finally we're going to get her motivation kicked into gear, right? She takes us back to the director and tells her, this is the same scar, blah, blah, blah. And now she's on a mission to get information on where she can find this cult.
But the director is like, we have a truce with this cult. I'm ordering you not to go after them. It will only bring chaos. So, yeah, of course, she's just going to go right to Ian McShane, who gave her a gold coin earlier, cash in that gold coin to get information from Ian McShane. It's a very go A to B to C to D plot where she knows exactly who to go to at any moment when she needs information to get the exact information she needs. But before she gets it, there's always going to be somebody saying, oh, you shouldn't do this.
We also get our little Lance Reddick cameo here, which is fun. I forgot when this movie was shot. I thought maybe they found somebody who looked like him, but no, Lance Reddick's last role, and very small. Like, he's only here for a moment as the concierge at the front desk and points her in the direction of Winston.
I kind of hoped for a little bit more from Chiron in this, just because it is his last role and they did play it up as his final filmed performance and his final posthumous performance. A little bit more than, do you have a reservation? He'll see you now. Would have been nice, but it's still good to feel him as part of this world. It's going to be weird whenever we have a John Wick film without him.
Yeah, we got peak Lance Reddick at the end of chapter 3. That's when Chiron and Wick go out there and fight in the Continental lobby, and they fight off all the high table assassins. That was phenomenal. That's great shootout. I think that they filmed this sequence with him and Ian McShane around the time that they were doing 4. Like, he knew that his character was already going to die in 4. But to a cynical viewer that I can be sometimes, I will ask you guys, if you're watching this, 1, are you thinking every one of these Winston scenes is inserted after in the additional photography? And 2, are you thinking if they lifted it out, could you have just had the movie without it? And what does it add other than to say, these are our guys, these are our John Wick guys? Now I feel more Wick.
Yeah.
I'll be honest, I can't tell anything in here being filmed differently than anything else. Nothing stuck out at me as this is obvious reshoots. I would have thought that opening had to have been there from the beginning because you have no character motivation if you don't kill the dad. You have very little character motivation as it is. So I couldn't tell what was reshot. Here, though, again, because both Lance Reddick and Ian McShane filmed this so long ago and were announced as being in this movie so long ago, it feels to me like this had to be the case, right? That you just go to him to get the information to go to the Continental in Prague. It's a very functional role. It's not anything for Ian McShane to revel in or do anything new with his character. It's literally be an exposition machine to talk about this death cult that kills for sport, not just for missions, but we let them stay at the Continental because it's better if they're in your place pissing outside instead of outside your place pissing inside.
That's a good line. That's good dialogue.
Yeah. For me, it feels like these legacy characters are all here more for our benefit than for our characters' benefit, right?
Absolutely, yes.
It's sticking out more to me more with the director Angelica Houston's character, but with her and Winston to a certain degree, I feel like less is more with these characters. The more mystery surrounding Angelica Houston's character, the better. Here, I feel like we're demystifying her. She's having long expositional scenes where she's talking and explaining things almost too well. To me, it's taking a little bit of the mystery out of some of these characters that are just supposed to be kind of shady, behind-the-scenes characters in this world of assassins. And now we're just having these scenes where we're having conversations and like Arnie said, it's putting you from plot point A to plot point B. You could have anybody doing this. You could have any character in this universe that we haven't seen before pointing her in the right direction.
You mentioned demystifying, and I recall that was a word that was used on our Continental podcast. Now, forget about the Continental after the sentence once again. But we didn't want all of this backstory for these characters, that we liked the mystery about them. I completely understand what you're saying. It's that classic case of giving too much of what the audience might think that they want.
But she does get the information she needs to go to the Continental in Prague, where Daniel Pine is hanging out. Winston calls the switchboard. We get this printout of Pine coming out of the printer, and I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot, but Norman Reedus is in this movie. I bet he's the big bad guy.
Yeah, he's on the poster.
Oh, wouldn't that be something? Yeah.
Yeah, that was my exact reaction too. I was like, oh yeah, I forgot he was in this, and we're only meeting him now? Like, seeing him on the poster, I thought he was going to be along for the ride the entire time.
Yeah, I thought we were being introduced to a new character that she'd either be fighting against or fighting with. I kind of thought fighting against for the rest of the movie. And he is in this movie such a short time, but they make such a big deal about him that he's hiding in the Continental in Prague, and there's all these assassins everywhere trying to get him. So that's why he's in there. We've seen this time and time again, because if there's no fighting on the Continental grounds, it is the perfect place to hide. And as Ana de Armas walks into the lobby, we see there Lena, who is Catalina Sandino Moreno. I've seen this actress in stuff, like she was in Twilight Eclipse. I didn't remember, got an Oscar nomination for Maria Full of Grace, but I just didn't recognize this actress at the sight, so I'm writing in my notes, young Kobe Smulders is in the lobby. Probably because we just did Jack Reacher, but it was on my mind.
I didn't recognize her either, so I just assumed that she was one of many assassins just hanging out there in the lobby. It's the weirdest thing. You can hide out in the Continental because you know that there's no business being conducted, but you got to stay there for the rest of your life because there's always going to be assassins sitting in the lobby.
Right.
That was the Russians' plan at the end of part 2, if you recall.
I remember that, yeah.
When John goes excommunicado, he's like, you can eat here for years and never repeat the same meal.
They got a tailor on site. They got a barbershop. It's fine.
I was going to say, he could have very easily just used the underground tunnel that we learned about in the Continental show.
I'd say Norman Reedus could use a tailor and a shave and a haircut.
Ugh. Very obvious he was only on set for a day. Less than any of these other cameos. It's so crazy. He never leaves this room/set. He's in this room with his daughter, and don't even get me started with all these reshoots that add the beginning with our own character being a young girl with the father. Like, it's the same beats. So did we need both of them in this? Like, I get that we're trying to draw some comparisons and she's going to be compassionate for this girl and the father, but holy cow.
One of my many theories as I think about this movie and the additional photography, was Norman Reedus possibly the sidekick in the third act and not John Wick? You know, was Reedus supposed to be here for more than 3.5 minutes?
Ooh, that would be a really interesting way to go. I'm going to say I don't think so, only because it would undermine Ana de Armas being the solo attacker in the third act if she had a guy to lean on.
Which is the reason why you would pull him out, because that actually is more of a cliche. And we'd seen that in a lot of these female-fronted action pics. It's like you've got your main ass-kicking heroine, but she's always got to be backed up by some schmucky guy. Who was the guy in Elektra?
Gordon Visnick.
Yes, completely forgettable. They can't all be Chris Pine, okay? I think Chris Pine did it as best as you can do it in Wonder Woman.
I agree with you, Justin, though. It's a little bit much that it's the exact same story that she had as a child, but I thought I saw where they were going with this, that the rest of the movie would be her protecting that girl. In that training montage, we saw time and time again, one of the trainings was protecting her ward. And the trainer, Nogi, said, the only rule is protect your subject.
Mm-hmm.
Everything else is on the table. So I really thought the rest of the movie was going to be protect Ella. And there was going to be a lot of gun fu where she was protecting the girl and that she might form a mother-daughter bond with this girl throughout. And that would help humanize her and give her, I guess, the first human connection since her father died. I mean, she seemed kind of friends with Tatiana, but she also didn't seem that upset when Tatiana got kicked out. So I thought maybe this would be the forming of a relationship, the creation of a foster family. You know, you're going through what I went through. I can help you with this. So I thought I knew where this was going, and it does not go to any of those places.
No. Ella's quickly scooped up and delivered back to the Chancellor, and we're not sure if Norman Reedus' character is dead or alive, or if it matters at all to this movie.
I'm pretty sure he's dead. I did like the shot where Eve and Ella are on one side of the train tracks and Norman Reedus' Daniel is on the other side, and we see this fight happen between the train cars. I thought that was pretty cool because we've seen so much fighting at this point anyway. You might as well give us a different way to see it. But I didn't expect, because it's Norman Reedus, I expected he'd stick around a little longer, that he was going to just be shot down in front of us. But, I mean, if you take a couple to the gut in a John Wick movie and you go down, I assume you're dead. If you keep standing, then you obviously were wearing that bulletproof suit.
Right.
But if you go down, it feels to me like the Norman Reedus shot later in the movie is a pickup. That like, oh, he's not really dead.
Definitely. And you talked about which direction this movie is going to go now. It can go in one of two directions, and they're both kind of tropes. One, she could take the girl under her wing, protect her for the rest of the movie, and that would be the case. Two, the girl gets kidnapped, she's got to go rescue her. We're going to go with door number 2.
Yeah, because Lena does capture Ella and then doesn't kill Eve for reasons. Eve is knocked out, and they're like, well, she's the main character of the movie, so we can't kill her or the movie's over. So let's just let the Continental people deal with her.
Maybe they all had rubber bullets. They just didn't signal that to us. That's why Ritas lives. That's why they were like, we can't kill her.
I don't think we've seen this before in the context of the Continental. We get to basically see like a trial and judgment here. Like the 3 people they've caught are Eve and 2 of the other people, assassins that we saw. And Eve is telling the concierge here at the Prague Continental that she didn't kill anybody. She didn't break any rules. And he just kind of looks at her like, okay, I believe you. And they shoot and execute the other 2 people.
The closest we've ever gotten to this was Miss Perkins, Adrienne Palicki, in the first movie, where she does business on the Continental grounds, and then she's executed off campus. They didn't do it at the hotel.
I did like the shot, though, where she's like, I didn't kill anyone on campus, and I want to see this movie again, just to pay attention how much she maims and wounds, but does not actually kill anyone in the Continental.
Same. I was thinking the same thing. I was like, was I not paying close enough attention? I thought she just tore through everybody. What just happened? So, yeah, I'll take her for her word till I go back and watch it.
Maybe she's still using rubber bullets.
Aha!
Nah, maybe. But she didn't shoot anyone in the dick.
Well, it couldn't have been her. That's her calling card.
But she's told she has to leave the Continental. So she goes, I don't know how she knows to go see Frank, but again, I'm thinking Kingsman. When he opens up that back room of guns and the guns are on display on those tilted red velvet racks and everything, I am just thinking exactly of that back room in the tailor shop in Kingsman.
And who is it in the Wick universe? Is it the sommelier who has all the weapons?
Yep.
And for dessert, the knives. Yeah. Yeah, I dig that. I dig the concept of the Continental and the concept of all these, the tailor, the sommelier. These people are part of the assassin industry, for lack of a better word.
Yeah, I suppose my problem with this scene is like Arnie mentioned, I'm not sure how she knows to go to Frank's, how she knows where Frank's is. Has she been to Prague before? But I also don't need another scene of somebody explaining to her where to go, so that's fine, she's here. But then I feel like Frank is on her side because she's the main character. He doesn't know her at all. He doesn't know what she's out to do, and he's only going to give her so much information, but is perfectly willing to show her all the weapons. But now all of a sudden the cult breaks in, and he's fully on her side.
I did find it funny, though, that clearly in frame you see the guy's name tag is Frank, and he leans forward and says, "Can I be Frank?" And she says, "Yes." He goes, "And I like to continue to be."
That was pretty funny. This is kind of a fun action scene here. Once the carnage begins, these assassins break in, and all of a sudden we're discovering levels to this building. This movie isn't great about establishing an exterior and an interior at any point. I feel like we're just in these rooms all of a sudden, but this scene's kind of fun because we're on these different levels. Like she's falling through floors, blowing up doors and hatches and ladders everywhere.
Oh, this is where we get the grenade fight. I love this.
Yeah, this is a lot of fun with a lot of good splatter. When she goes up, I don't understand ever. Eve's entire MO in this movie is, guys are coming. I should run up the flight of stairs where there's no escape. But she does it repeatedly in this film. This is, I think, the first instance of that. But she goes up there and there's all these weapons and she opens up one case and it just gets this like really happy look on her face. She's got all these grenades. She like is hiding behind metal doors and throwing a grenade at people, and it explodes, and, she'd probably be deaf if all of this happened, but...
Thank you. There's a suspension of disbelief that I allow myself for these movies, but in the theater, I'm like, somebody's gonna go deaf. I mean, she's blowing up grenades right next to her head. That's insane. Get some earplugs in here.
This scene is my favorite kill in the movie, too, when she's fighting all these guys. She gets one guy, she wraps something around his neck and starts to drag him over and, pops a grenade in him.
When she flips the table?
Yeah, and she flips the table and the table protects her and he's just a blotch of red liquid everywhere.
Oh, there's so much blood goes, this is the best and bloodiest right here, yeah.
My only grouse, and I had this mostly with headshots and a little bit with the grenades, is the blood looked a little too CGI. The splatter, it literally felt like a really well done PS5 graphic. I'm not saying it looked cheap, but it looked digital. It just looked like when I do a headshot with a sniper rifle in a game, how the blood just appears right there. It didn't feel like it came out of anything. It felt like it was just painted on.
Noticeable. Yeah, I agree.
Well, and also, Eve never seems to get blood on her. Like, early on, she had a little bit she was washing off, but I think that's because they had her standing at a sink. Throughout this entire movie, like, she's standing right next to dudes getting blown up by grenades and not a splat of blood on her.
You know, but that's kind of a trope of how the hero always looks good, and it's more so a trope when that hero is a woman.
Sure.
It's a fun scene, but truthfully, if I'm to get to my end thought a little bit, I think this movie is too long. I think the first John Wick had it right at 100 minutes, and here we're at 125, and this fight, despite being fun, we could have had this same action happen when she gets to the armory in Austria. She doesn't have to get to two places where a lot of specialized weapons are stored and have similar fights where she is overarmed.
Oh, Arnie, you're so right, because she loads up this car with some weapons that she never ends up using.
Yeah, she has a bag full of weapons when she goes into the town, and she literally leaves the bag behind, and I'm like, where did her bag go?
Right. Holy cow.
I think what they wanted to do was hit all the beats of Wick, including her going to the sommelier. And then they were like, well, we need more action and we've got an idea for a grenade fight. So this is a good spot for that. But yeah, the next scene we go to is her in this town, Hallstatt, and the restaurant attack. What I think is interesting about the film, the way they set this up, this Hallstatt place, looked it up. I'm sure you guys did too. And it's in Austria. It's beautiful. Look at that. It's right there on the water kind of thing. It's a very small town, the small village kind of thing. It's gorgeous. This whole town is a quote company town for the cult assassins. It is like a town in Halloween 3 or Springfield in the G.I. Joe comics, if I'm going to go that far back. We get a really good fight here in the restaurant, but it takes place literally minutes after the grenade fight.
What I did like is during the fight with Norman Reedus at the Continental in Prague, at one point Eve is bludgeoning a guy with a TV remote. And on that television, we see the Three Stooges, we see Buster Keaton, and we see the Parent Trap. And that's telling me, don't take this action seriously. This is slapstick. We're supposed to be lighthearted with this action, which I've never really felt. I've kind of felt John Wick movies, while over the top, were hard-hitting movies. But this is telling me, laugh. She's bludgeoning a guy with a TV remote. Laugh. I am laughing. You named a couple of cities like Springfield or Haddonfield or wherever the Halloween 3 thing was.
The Silver Shamrock's place, yeah.
What I was thinking of, because this is more rural, was Hot Fuzz.
Okay, and it's across the ocean. There you go.
Where everybody in the town ends up with a gun and going after Simon Pegg and Nick Frost at the end. It's like immediately here, everybody's got a gun. Everybody's going after her. And I am laughing. This is funny to me when the waitress is like serving her a coffee and then the waitress goes ballistic and starts attacking and she locks the waitress in the freezer.
Yeah.
Later, the waitress accidentally saves her life by breaking down the freezer door. I'm like, okay, this is comedy. This is slapstick we're seeing here. I'm supposed to laugh at this, not be adrenalized.
Right. And it's also a great way to, as you say, let us as the viewer in on the idea that this whole town is part of this, right? Like, because we first see her walk into this restaurant and she's looking at more of the ballerinas like she had as a child, realizing, oh, okay, I must be in the right place or whatever. And the only other character we see is this waitress behind her. And you kind of feel like, oh, well, this is just somebody in this town or whatnot. But having her also be in on the fight lets us know, oh, wow, nobody around here is going to be trustworthy, even the kids.
Well, I also thought that people knew what was up because when she walks in and orders that coffee, we see some like happy couples at different tables and they sneak out like shit's about to go down. But then we find out where they'd actually gone was just to get weapons and to get the kids inside. Did you notice the playground schoolyard was also the shooting range?
Yep.
Like the kids are playing right by the target so you know that like they have gun class in elementary school.
Mm-hmm. And as she pulls into town, she's kind of looking off to the side and, gets close to hitting a mom and daughter or kid walking across the street, and the kid, finger guns at her. So, yeah, we automatically know that there's something up with this town. She's in the right place if she's looking for a cult.
But a lot of fighting, and this is the moment in the movie where I realized I kind of stopped taking notes for a while, because I just kept writing down, she's kicked. She kicks the guy. She falls down the stairs. Oh, she tapes a knife to her gun. She's now stabbing with her gun.
I like that.
I just kept writing these action beats down and writing good gun fu. I mean, I'm not dissing the action of this movie at all. It is all well choreographed. It is all good action. But man, am I getting tired at the end. And it's just coming from everywhere. At no point do I get a breather. She goes into town right after that fight at the gun shop and she's being attacked again. I'm like, I need to go off in the corner and have a Gatorade and come back refreshed for more of this.
Listen, this is the ultimate problem with this entire franchise. Even in the original movie, they knew that action, even really good action, isn't enough to keep people going the entire thing. And that's why they wrote the scene with the pencil, right? They knew, this is something unique that you've never seen before. And I feel like every movie since then, they've been trying to come up with something like the pencil fight. And duct taping a knife to a gun, not the same. It's just not.
I liked it. I thought it was clever. I'm liking the fight choreography here. I'm acknowledging the same thing that you guys are acknowledging is we're getting action sequences. We're not feeling anything around those sequences because the in-between is pretty hollow. And right now, this next fight in which Ella is taken, we're going to get the scene between the Chancellor and Lena, and there's a big revelation coming. And for me, it turns out to be kind of a shrug moment.
Oh, I thought this was going to be a big deal, much like Norman Reedus showing up when the Chancellor reveals to Eve, oh, Norman Reedus was my son, Ella is my granddaughter. And so I'm now thinking, wait, maybe Eve and Norman Reedus were cousins or siblings or something? Is she also the Chancellor's grandchild or something? But they're just going to say that Lena was your older sister that we dropped a mention of in the prologue. And so you two are reunited now. I'm like, sisters are doing it for themselves. Lena didn't kill Eve the first time. Maybe Lena's gonna have a change of heart and team up with Eve for this fight. I am surprised how little it matters that Lena is her sister, because the two are going to have a conversation for a couple minutes, and I guess the Chancellor's like, oh, women talking, that can't be good. Kill them all.
Right. Well, you know what? The revelation is done so casually. I kind of applaud the movie here for not dragging it out and the Chancellor saying something mysterious or cryptic to Lena. He just kind of comes out flatly and says, yeah, sisters, that's you. Two of your sisters, that's the case. Boom. But then 2 minutes later, you're like, just like that, she's dead. It feels cheap.
Yeah, and this is where it gets sloppily written, I guess, but I don't know that I need more information. But when you're dealing with cults, you have some cults where the leader literally is fathering children with several women and the actual literal father of a bunch of these kids. There's also cults where he's just the leader and they call him father, and these couples have kids on their own. So does it matter here? I don't know, but it seems like they were making a big deal of this being a cult and not just some other assassin group. So either do something with that or don't, right? And they start to scratch the surface of it, and next thing you know, they're blown up. And once again, neither one of them gave one shit about their mom being dead. And here we are in a flaming cabin in the middle of an Austrian mountain town, and I'm feeling nothing for any of these characters at the moment.
I'm just thinking it can't be a script that was on the blacklist as best unproduced scripts if you have the reveal, she's your sister, on page 98, and on page 100, she's dead.
Yeah.
Exactly.
In an explosion that kills only one of them, and only the one who's not our main character.
Mm-hmm.
Thank you. This is where you say to yourself, okay, if this was a spec script, it was about a woman either avenging or rescuing somebody against a cult. And I'm sure that the whole idea of the cult having their own little town was part of that original idea. That sounds like, okay, good. It's the cult. They have a town and then she's going to bust in. And then they took that script and they said, we're going to X out this plot part here. Who's this character, Norman Reedus? Well, he dies here, maybe. And then we're going to change this here. And John Wick's in here.
So this cult runs an entire town. Every single person in this town is part of the cult.
Mm-hmm. Every person in the town is a trained assassin.
Eve is so good at what she does that the Chancellor is worried, so he's going to call up the director and be like, we're going to war with all the Rusk of Roma unless you call off this woman.
And I got nothing to say to that. Angelica Houston's answer is, dude, I can't call her off even if I wanted to. And yes, that is exactly the case. So there's no point in calling Angelica Houston unless it was rewritten for a specific purpose, and we're going to find out what that purpose is.
Right.
You know where I'm going with this?
Yeah, because she basically says, hang on a second. I just remembered this is a John Wick movie. I'm going to send Keanu Reeves over for the last 15 minutes of this movie. How's that hit you, Chancellor?
Okay. We know that this is going to take place after Wick gets his passport stamped or ticket torn, goes to Casablanca. It also takes place after he loses the finger. I made sure to look for that if you guys saw it too.
Oh, I forgot to look for that. So he's missing the finger during this?
He is missing the finger in the very end, yeah.
Okay.
So it's after he went to the Elder.
Uh-huh.
Is it before or after the big battle in the Continental at the end of part 3? That's what I'm wondering, and everything that I've read says it takes place actually after 3, after he gets rescued by Lawrence Fishburne.
You're right. I thought he was just rehabbing for months or whatever after 3.
Exactly.
And John Wick was dealing with so much personal shit throughout all of 3 and 4 that if he's not just rehabbing, why would the Rusk of Roma call him and say, oh, you punched your ticket, but now we need you, so we're going to have you be the one we call in to kill Eve, who, oh, do you remember you happened to encounter her a while ago? Maybe not. But I have a theory on this. We know John Wick 5 is coming, and it's not a prequel, it's a sequel. I bet they're going to retcon it that in exchange for helping the Rusk of Roma this night, the Rusk of Roma helped John Wick fake his death.
All right.
I mean, okay, yeah. I don't want us to get way too into like Saw territory where you really got to twist your mind around to make it make sense. But that is something that it would work because if where we are in the movies, Wick can't go to her after 4 because he's quote dead. So it would have to be a faked death because I do not believe that he goes to her before Chapter 4 starts. 1, because he's rehabbing down there with Lawrence Fishburne. 2, because he's not back in with the Rusk of Roma. He has to do that by killing Scott Adkins and tearing his tooth out.
Mm-hmm.
It's really either continuity breaking or they're really playing 4-dimensional chess with us on having John Wick show up here at the behest of the director.
Yeah.
The more we think about it, the more it's going to feel even more forced than it kind of felt going in.
Mm-hmm. And, I mean, we should talk about even the necessity of the inclusion here, because I'll be honest with you, seeing Keanu on screen, sure, lends some credence to this story being in the same universe or whatnot, but he really doesn't do anything here. Like, they fight a little bit, and he just keeps telling her, just leave. You don't have to do this. Just leave. He beats her 4 or 5 times. If he was there to kill her, he could have done it easily, but he doesn't. And then they come to an agreement. He's going to give her until midnight, because that's the time clock on the wall to get done what she needs to get done. Otherwise, he's going to finish her off.
I'm glad, though, that they don't nerf John Wick. You know, we've had Ana de Armas kick everybody's ass. She's basically our John Wick of this movie. And so when it comes against John Wick, how's she going to do? We've seen her take on all comers, and she lives, and I don't even think she's wearing a bulletproof outfit. I always feel like it's Dracula when John Wick hides behind his coat, and he pulls up the coat and he's peering over it to dodge the bullets. And he does that with her, but he takes her out so easily every time. It's again reminding me of the stuff we talk about with Jack Reacher and the Tom Cruise movies. John Wick doesn't have to kill her. He just keeps getting her down and saying, you need to leave, and not using the force. But as good as Eve has been in this movie, John Wick, it's like a cat playing with a ball of yarn here.
Sure. Well, they don't want to do anything that would mess with the Wick storyline at all. You know what I mean? Even Keanu, the things that John Wick does in this movie, they're like, you'll do things, but they can't be so consequential that they impact either your outcome in what may be the next film, the next sequel, or her path, even though he does interfere a little bit here.
And that's the thing is, I think having Keanu here, did you notice he was an executive producer as well as one of the title build member? He's the and of the film. And he spent so heavy in all the trailers that I think people who don't know are going to be disappointed how little John Wick is in it, whereas people who do know may be surprised at how much John Wick is in it between the useless conversation earlier and then this.
You know, both those scenes, the useless conversation scene and this scene, both made it into the trailers.
Mm-hmm.
They put as much Keanu as is in this movie into those ads.
But he, for reasons I don't understand, I don't know why he's there. I don't know really what his mission is because he keeps telling Eve to leave when I think he was sent to kill her. But then he's like, all right, I'll give you till midnight. And then if you haven't killed the Chancellor, I have to kill you. Isn't the director going to be pissed about this? I mean, what is John Wick's mission?
The director calls Wick, but we don't get a bounty on her head scene. Not yet. I can only imagine that Wick lets her do her thing because he knows that she's Ruska Roma. He heard her, she talks about her backstory and he's sympathetic. But that's not a boogeyman who kills the boogeyman.
No, if we're in the John Wick world, just because we're following this character for this movie, John Wick kills this woman. I'm sorry, that's just the laws and logic that this series has set forth.
We did see John Wick, I think it was part 2, where he was forced to take an assassin job he didn't want to do, and he got that woman and let her kill herself instead of killing her because he didn't really want to kill her. He's been a reluctant assassin several times, but yeah, I just don't understand. Was the point to bring her home? Was the point that one of them has to die and the director didn't care which? And then John Wick is just going to have his own fight with townies because we've got Keanu on set. He probably doesn't need much practice. He could just go kick ass right now.
You guys know when you play a video game where you switch over to another character for the side mission?
Yes, I hate that.
The Batman Arkham series is kind of the one I thought about, maybe switching over playing Catwoman. That's what you do here.
All right, but what we're really doing here is we're kicking off the final battle scene, and we've had all kinds of gun foo, we've had grenade foo. How are we going to up it? We're going to flamethrower foo our way through the end of this bitch.
From the 14th Fist of McCluskey. That's what I thought about when she comes out with that flamethrower. Hell yeah, I love these flamethrowers. They fire like shotguns.
Oh my god, these are great flamethrowers. I love the shots with them, the lighting, just the use of everything on fire. She's going up against this henchman, this blonde guy. She just has a thing against blonde guys this whole movie. There was a blonde guy torturing her at the Ruska Roma training, and now there's this blonde guy there, Dex, who also gets a flamethrower. They do this thing several times in the movie, but I don't get tired of it, where they do a complete top-down shot of the flames going across the screen as they shoot at each other, and they're dodging flames from each other. And then every time she gets alone and she's not dodging flames, she's just roasting people. I did find myself wondering, I never questioned why does your gun still have bullets, but I noticed she wasn't carrying a huge propane tank on her back, so I was wondering at what point she was going to run out of ammo. And then I was thinking Kingsman again. It's not that kind of movie, brah.
I will say, it looks like a lot of this firework is practical because you can see the fire retardant gel in some of these guys' hair. But man, I've watched behind the scenes stuff before on how they do fire effects, and there's a reason why you never see a shot for more than 15 or 20 seconds uncut, because that's about as long as you can go before you have to get doused out. And there's a scene here where she sets a whole group of guys on fire. One guy gets up, he starts walking again, he gets shot again with the fire. I mean, it felt like a good minute of screen time uncut with this poor guy on fire. And I don't know if they enhanced it digitally or if it was partially practical or what, but it was impressive. It was one of the most impressive guy on fire scenes I've ever seen put to film.
I never thought CGI with the flamethrower. Probably some of it was, but unlike the headshots and the grenade stuff with the blood splatter, this I bought into. It's not a question that it has to be practical. The question is it has to keep my suspension of disbelief going, and this kept me suspended in disbelief.
Yeah, I love it. This is the highlight action sequence. That's why they put it in the trailer. It gets even better than them firing off shots of flamethrower when she breaks out the hose. And then it's like battle beasts, man. It's like water beats fire. And then you two of them going at it. And she's fighting this guy. You mentioned a guy. I just looked at him as like he's from the Till Schweiger school of German henchmen, if you know who that actor is.
Square jaw.
Exactly. Gotts Otto from Tomorrow Never Dies. That's where this guy's from.
I did like that she went with the broad spray of the hose to douse his flamethrower, but then once she got through it, turned it to like the power hose to knock him down.
It's like the settings on your sprinkler.
Yes.
That you love messing with, I love it.
But John Wick saved her ass because he gets back up and he's about to flamethrower her. And this is where John Wick has had her in his sniper sights this whole time, but not pulling the trigger, waiting for midnight. And he sees that Dex is going to burn her. He could just shoot Dex, you know. He could just shoot Dex in the head. Instead, he shoots Dex's propane tank so that Dex blows up.
Yeah, it's fun. A little bit of Jaws moment, right? He hits it right in the butt end of that tank and boom.
But what have you done? You've taken it away from Eve. You know, she doesn't get the kill shot on what's going to be the main henchman battle guy. Because Gabriel Byrne's not going to be a threat other than a talkie-talkie villain.
And this fight goes on a long time. I do say I'm, again, feeling the heat from the flamethrowers, but after like 5 minutes of flamethrower fight, it felt a little repetitive.
This henchman guy also should have been a character. Your battle at the very end is somebody that we have to be established with. The name Dex, I got it from the IMDb and the Wikipedia. I don't know if the character's name was mentioned because I didn't hear it mentioned.
Yeah, make him one of the guys that actually killed her dad back in the day, or maybe...
Make it the sister, and then Wick does take the kill shot because it would be a little harsh or something. I don't know.
Or make it one of the Ruska Roma. Again, he looked a lot like the blonde guy who kept shooting her in the training sessions. You could have just had it be the same blonde guy. I kind of wondered if it was at first.
We sent our own assassin. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, the fact that he's nameless henchman is disappointing. I'm liking the action. I'm just not caring for the circumstances around the action. And then she stops the Ford Explorer that the Chancellor is escaping in. This guy who I do like, who has just a bunch of telescopes and calls himself the Eye, convinces the Chancellor you should run, even though no Chancellor has ever run from this town. And she stops him. He starts to give another Gabriel Byrne speech. Yeah, she just shoot him in the head.
Mm-hmm.
I like that, though.
Now, I did just see this, like, last week when we watched Jack Reacher.
Mm-hmm.
But it still always works. You know, it's the Harrison Ford and the sword fighter shoot him moment.
Right. Don't give me a monologue. Let's just end this. And you know what? That's very reflective of John Wick killing Alfie Allen's character in the first one. You remember?
Mm-hmm.
He chases him down, and Allen just says, "It's not a dog," bang, and he doesn't give him any other time to say anything.
Mm-hmm.
Uh-huh. And she rescues Ella out of the back of the truck. And again, I'm like, okay, now she's a mother figure. She's going to deal with this. But instead, we get John Wick calling the director. It's over. She's dead. He's dead.
Mm-hmm.
Delivered to expert Keanu.
I don't even know what that emphasis on he's dead meant. I didn't know him being dead was an option. I don't know exactly what this all means.
I just took it as situation is resolved. Maybe not the way you thought it was going to be resolved, but it's resolved.
But I think it's Winston who's going to say you cut the head off the snake, but the body still lives. I honestly thought she might go Rambo. I honestly thought she might just destroy the whole town before she left.
Yeah.
Well, she had the flamethrowers for it. I really did think for a second that that would happen. Yeah.
So I've learned a long time ago in this series not to ask or worry too much about the logistics of travel between these cities these guys are doing. Like John Wick, is he traveling first class? Is he on some freighter on the underbelly of a plane or whatnot? But here I do have to ask, Eve now has Ella with her. Are they just flying coach back to Prague? Like, how is she getting this child back to the Prague Continental?
Rumaroska, they should have a plane. They should give it to her. She should get on John Wick's train.
There you go. Yeah, the 3-car train.
I just Googled. There are high-speed trains from Vienna to Prague.
All right.
You can get there in as short as 4 hours.
All right. Like I said, I don't need to see the travel happening, but now you got a kid in tow, and if you're an assassin traveling incognito or whatnot, fine, whatever.
Yeah, I mean, we are just a step away from the Indiana Jones red line over the map type thing, but here's that shot that feels like an insert to me. It's like LL Cool J at the end of Halloween H2O. Oh, I'm still alive!
The bullet just grazed me.
But Norman Reedus is alive. I'm guessing because they just don't want to saddle Ana de Armas with a child if they get a sequel. They don't want to have to deal with her putting the kid in daycare for some action scenes.
Well, and to prove my theory that Norman Reedus is only there for a day, he's shot in the same bed here, recovering with, medical tubes on him and whatnot, in the same bed in the hotel room that we first saw him in.
Was the same? Oh my God, I didn't even catch that. That's wild.
I didn't catch it either. I do know he had to go to Japan for some of the reshoots. So they had him for more than a day because they had him for shoot 1 and shoot 2.
Interesting. Okay.
But we want to know what's going on with Eve, right? Like, she drops off the kid, and now she's back at the Ruska Roma watching a ballet?
I wasn't sure. I mean, we saw in the Continental TV series that the Continental has a grand ballroom. I didn't know if the Continental might have a theater where they put on ballets in the Continental, because she went to the Continental specifically for protection from the cult. And theoretically, as we have said already in this podcast, if you're doing that, do you never leave the Continental? Are you just living on their grounds? I would assume so. But then if that was the case, did she leave to go watch ballet? Is this a Ruska Roma ballet, or did she just go down to like Broadway to see Swan Lake?
Maybe.
I didn't think about where she was at this moment, but I thought to myself, all the phones start going off in the theater. She's looking at him. Who put the bounty on her? That's the big mystery that, well, I don't know if it's a big mystery, but it is a mystery they want to leave us with at the end of this film.
Oh, I thought for sure it was the cult. I didn't know that was supposed to be a mystery, but it was reminding me of the end of John Wick 2, perhaps my favorite ending of any Wick film, when Wick is walking through that square and everybody's cell phones start going off and he's walking faster and faster, and then he starts to jog and then he starts to run. That's what this was reminding me of, only she just, I'm going to leave now.
Yep.
It has about the import of any of the rest of the movie.
Yeah, I've got no further comment. She goes down the stairs, out the door, and zippity-doo-dah, bye-bye.
So, Justin, do you recommend Ballerina? Jason.
So, John Wick 3.5 or Electra? In the end, for me, it comes down close to the middle, but it is definitely on the side of John Wick. We've talked about the production and the additional photography. Clearly, there are conflicting ideas here. Clearly, there are holes that we have spotted throughout this review. The sister comes and goes, and Norman Reedus that comes and goes, John Wick's insertion into the final act, and Gabriel Byrne, who does nothing really for me as a villain. But Ana de Armas is a star. I think she absolutely dominates in her action scenes. I think she's a great addition to this universe. The action scenes do carry this movie. The flamethrower battle, the ice club, the grenade fight, all highlights. In this case, for me, those action scenes make up for a real clumsy narrative. I feel like we've gotten the origin story out of the way. We've got a good new hero for this series. It's time to send her off on an adventure with a better story. So it's a recommend. It's not a strong one, not a super strong one. It is a weak recommend.
Justin.
So I think I've been saying something similar to this with every iteration in this series is, we get to another John Wick movie and I'm never in the mood for it, but they always end up pulling me in and I enjoy them. And I think the train might have stopped on this one because, as I said earlier, what keeps me in the John Wick universe is a number of things. It's the great action, it's filmed well, it's the adrenalization, it's Keanu Reeves, it's his motivation. And the fact that he, and I said it earlier, is trying to get out of this life and it just keeps pulling him back in, to me is a motivation that I can get behind. Here, this movie tries to throw a motivation at us and it kind of half-asses it, and I can't get behind that. Like, I enjoy Ana de Armas in this movie. She does great. Her action scenes are great. But when I stop to think about what we're doing here, it really just feels like action for action's sake. We didn't say much about it, but all of the dialogue in this movie is so clunky. It's written poorly, it's delivered poorly, and so all you're left with is cool visuals, cool fight scenes. So if you're in the mood for more John Wick style fight scenes, yeah, there's stuff for you here to watch, but as far as me wanting more in the Ballerina story, I really don't. And even throwing these legacy characters back in here, it didn't help. It actually took me out of the movie more than it did help me bring into the John Wick universe. So this is the first time I'm going to take a theatrical John Wick story and give it a not recommend. To me, it didn't live up to what a John Wick movie should do, and maybe they shouldn't do it again.
And for me, do you like gunfights, sword fights, flamethrowers, people getting creatively murdered every 25 seconds? If so, I think the Ballerina's ready to scratch that really specific itch. If you want, say, compelling characters, though, or believable motivation, or any kind of emotional arc, well, I gotta ask, have you seen a John Wick movie yet? But the original Wick had just enough heart, some grief, a puppy, some loss-driven rage to justify its slick rampage of vengeance. And then the series really quickly shifted from man avenges dog to mythic hitman karate murders half the planet because there are rules. I mean, each film got bigger, louder, and honestly, in my mind, emptier until part 4 redeemed it some. But when I was looking at my rankings, 1 is still by far my favorite thing in the John Wick verse. And then it went 2 is a little worse, 3 is a little worse, and then I bumped 4 up on the scale because it just was so epic. And then, of course, the Continental's in the toilet.
The what? I don't even remember.
But Ballerina continues this diminishing returns trend, minus even the minimal grounding to the films that Reeves brought. But Ana de Armas is the reason to watch this film. She sells the physicality, she trained hard, it shows. She is as good in the action as Charlize Theron was in Atomic Blonde, and as Keanu is as John Wick. She's got presence, but her character, Eve, isn't a ballerina, it's a paper doll. I mean, it's just so thin. She's avenging her dad that she didn't seem worried about for 12 years. Maybe she's protecting a kid that's in the film for maybe 5 minutes. Maybe she's learning about her sister who's going to die 2 minutes later. It's all there technically, but it's so rushed it barely registers. I mean, this movie's main feature is non-stop violence, but it is impressive, at least early on. And that flamethrower fight kicks all kinds of ass, but it keeps going and going and going. And that's kind of this movie in a nutshell, is a lot of style without rhythm. There's no peaks, there's no valleys, it's just a flat line of mayhem. I wasn't watching it at the end so much as I was enduring it while occasionally checking my watch. And by about halfway through the film, I stopped being thrilled and started going, wow, that stunt took a lot of planning. That shot is cool. Oh, this is still going, huh? I mean, it reminded me, every 4th of July, my wife loves watching fireworks. She's done it since she was a young girl, and I always will take her to go see fireworks. But after a little while, it's like, yep, there's something else blowing up in the sky, and oh, that's pretty, another one. Now imagine a fireworks show that goes on for 2 hours and 10 minutes, and that's the Ballerina. I mean, it's better than the Continental, I'll give it that much, and there's still real talent behind the camera that, based upon all previous works I've seen, I'm going to credit Stahelski and not Wiseman for.
Good move.
But Ballerina is what happens when a franchise starts spinning its wheels. It's violent, it's slick, and it's kind of empty. So is that a recommend? I mean, it's really dazzling. And the analogy I go back to again is porn. Do you want porn with a plot, or do you want gonzo porn where people just fuck? I like to know she ordered that pizza. I want to see her, fighting with the valve before the plumber comes. And this is gonzo gun fu. I'm really right on the borderline, because what it does well. It just doesn't try to do more. I can't give it a pass. I just didn't enjoy it all that much. It became numbing. And so I gotta just eke this to a not recommend.
Yeah.
A mild not recommend, a exhausted not recommend, but a not recommend.
Yeah, mostly because I do not want to encourage them to do this again. If they're going to keep playing in the John Wick universe, they need to get more creative or figure out what it is that makes John Wick, and try that. But I do not want this to be sequeled because the jump off point is not compelling enough to want me to swim after it.
I want to see Ana de Armas again.
I do too, strangely. Even though I didn't like this movie, she did the action well enough. And that's really what we're here for a John Wick film for. The rest is the frosting on the cake. But a cake without frosting is kind of sucky. So, I mean, she gave good cake, but the writer, director didn't give her enough frosting. I would be up to see Ana de Armas return. I just want her to be more of a story. Because John Wick is a profitable franchise, although I don't know if this movie's going to be. I mean, right now, though, I would want Ballerina 2 more than I want Kane, the Donnie Yen directed, starred spin-off from part 4.
Yeah, let's think about that for a second. They talk about trying to get that movie made. With all due respect, you can't do a $100 million action picture that has Donnie Yen as the star. You'd never get that money. You could do the $20 million first John Wick movie with Donnie Yen as the star. We love Donnie Yen and he's fantastic, but we also know how Hollywood works. And that Kane character, you have to pair him with somebody who's an actual star. That's just the way it is.
Yeah, the Wick universe without Wick, kind of like, the Star Wars universe without Han, Luke, and Leia. You're going to keep trying to mine those dollars, but I think the returns are going to be diminishing. If this film really costs $90 million and only opens to $25 million domestic, unless the overseas revenue is just boffo, I could see them possibly pulling the plug on the Kane film.
I could see that. I could see the international money being a lot. I looked at the box office for all the Wick films, and internationally, it's done much better, especially with Part 4. Part 4 was, unbelievable, just where they went and what they did with that film. This movie is not going to make John Wick money. That is for sure. But like I said, they have their star, they have a character. They could absolutely do more John Wick-ish movies. But like you said, Justin, you have to figure out what John Wick is. You've got a universe, you've got a style that's established from the films that Stahelski's done, and then you've got to figure out a way to do new characters for this franchise to exist without Keanu.
Yeah, I'm just not looking forward to any more Wick. I felt like 4, kind of like Marvel after Endgame. You had your Wick arc, you put him to bed, you had like this perfect quadrilogy, and now you just keep going back to that well, and instead of doing something like a similar movie, like just going and making nobodies all the time, or Atomic Blonde 2, you keep coming back to John Wick because that's now your brand, and it's diminishing returns on this. But I just don't feel excited even for John Wick 5, John Wick Lives. It didn't work so well with the Matrix Resurrections. I'm not looking forward to John Wick Resurrections.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to put a franchise to bed, and I feel like they did that already.
Never, Justin! Shareholders!
Yeah.
Never!
Well, now playing listeners. We can't put franchises to bed. You know what? Lionsgate, they won't give up on this property. They have to find a way for it to continue because it is a marquee for them. Just like they're finding ways to get the Hunger Games to continue. And we'll be talking about that later this year.
Thank you, though, for listening to this show. Let's talk a little bit about what's coming up for Now Playing. We have, for the past 2 weeks, been running a poll. What movie do you guys want us to review while Stuart is still recovering in the hospital?
Are the results in?
The results are in.
Oh, let's hear it. It's Mimic.
Mimic, actually, after last week when I said Mimic was not doing so well, Mimic got a push, and it actually did not end up in last place.
So what ended up in last place?
The lowest votes were Alex Cross, losing to Mimic by 1 vote. Mimic came in second to last. Coming in fourth with a pretty strong 15% was the Major League Series. Honestly, that got more love from voters than I thought it would. So we're not going to be covering Major League, but hey, baseball people, we are going to be covering Moneyball for patrons this October. So we'll do a little baseball love.
Heck yeah.
Coming in third place, strong showing. I'm not shocked it didn't win, but I'm not shocked it did well. Taken.
Which I feel like maybe someday, that could get thrown back into a poll maybe.
It could get thrown back in a poll. They could do a Taken 4. Liam Neeson will do anything for money. But the 2 leads were separated by only 2 votes. Out of hundreds of votes, 2 votes separated first and second place. The winner is the Robert Landon movies, Da Vinci Code, Angels and Demons, and Inferno.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about that, Justin? You're a fan?
I feel like I always have to qualify that with I'm a fan of the novels. I don't know how I feel about the movies because I haven't seen them all, but yeah, I'm a fan of the Robert Langdon stories.
I read that first book before it was a movie because it was a phenomenon. Everyone was talking about it. And I know a lot of people hated that book, but me, I hated myself for liking that book. It was an addictive book, but I felt like it was bad for me. I felt like it was potato chips. I guarantee I'll use that analogy when we review it because I couldn't put the book down and it was reminding me of I think it was Ruffles, We Bet You Can't Eat Just One. I could never read just one chapter of Da Vinci Code. If I picked up that book, I was there for an hour.
That must have been why it became a bestseller.
It's got a dash of pseudo-intellectualism to it, right? It makes you feel smart as a reader, feeling like you're right there along with Langdon figuring things out, even though it's being spoon-fed to you. That's the appeal of it, right? It makes you feel smart.
Well, I'm going to reread the book before we review it, but I never felt like the book was smart. But damn if that author isn't smart, because every chapter, I think, ended on a cliffhanger. Like, I could never put that book down. It's like, he opens the door to find... Next chapter. What did he find? I need to know.
That's a secret recipe.
But first, a flashback to 12 years prior.
So if the Da Vinci Code movies there got number 1, then I think I know what got number 2. It was the series I was rooting for.
Yeah, Darkman lost only by 2 votes, so good news for those who voted for Darkman. We're going to do Darkman also. I don't know when, but it will be a top priority for us. I'm looking at the schedule. I really hope that Stuart is back with us and we're back doing theatrical releases come September. I know that seems like a long time off, and oh God, could he be out through September? But his recovery is going to be long and it's going to be hard. If he's not back by September, we will do Darkman as we hold off on Conjuring and The Long Walk. So we could do Darkman in those 3 weeks. If Stuart is back, and let's hope for the sake of his recovery that he is and he's able to feel better and be doing a lot better by, hopefully sooner than September, just so he's not being put through this rehab anymore, then we will just find 3 weeks when we can do Darkman, because the listeners have told us we want Darkman. Just 2 people wanted Robert Langdon more.
2 people. Well, we appreciate you hanging in there, really. We miss Stuart so much, and you know that we would love to hear his thoughts on some of these new releases coming out this summer, and we are absolutely going to wait because he's been doing those series for so long, and we need to hear his voice again. I'm very happy when we hear the updates and that he's getting better, but I know it's a long road. But man, do we miss you. I'll tell you, man.
You're here.
Absolutely. And I do want to announce, though, coming up soon, open for donations now, is going to be our summer-fall donation drive. We will be kicking that off in just 2 weeks. We're going to start with I Know What You Did Last Summer. That slasher film has a legacy sequel coming out here in just a few weeks. And so we are going to be reviewing all 5 I Know What You Did Last Summer movies. This includes the original, the I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, the direct-to-video I'll Always Know What You Did Last Summer, then the TV series that only lived for a season of I Know What You Did Last Summer, and finally this new I Know What You Did Last Summer.
Man, I'm telling you, whenever we get into these series where it's like, oh yeah, I knew there was this movie and I knew there was a sequel, then it's always this show that teaches me like, oh, but there was so much more to this that you did not know was out there. And it's usually for a good reason.
I can't wait to hear you guys talk about this. For me, I Know What You Did Last Summer, it came right after Scream, and actually right before Scream 2. But it falls in that kind of late 90s teen slasher revival.
Yeah, they're both written by Kevin Williamson.
Exactly. It means so much to me, that era. I cannot wait to hear you guys talk about it. It's one of my favorite eras of horror in my life.
Then for Gold Level, coming late this fall, we're going to be starting Gold Level in October. We're off to see The Wonderful Wizard of Oz. For our Gold Level, follow the Golden Brick Road to donate $25 or more as we review 8 feature films based on The Wizard of Oz and that series of books by L. Frank Baum. This includes a 1920s silent film, the 1930s classic film that I think everyone has been forced to watch Clockwork Orange style by this point in their life. It's honestly the only film on this whole list I've seen. Then the 1972 Journey Back to Oz, the 1978 musical The Wiz. This one I remember coming out, and as a 10-year-old wanted to see it but never did. Return to Oz from 1985.
All I'll say about that one is a bunch of severed heads in jars.
What? Seriously?
Mm-hmm.
Oh my God, what kind of freak show is this? I can't wait.
Then Sam Raimi's Oz the Great and Powerful. You know, we're not covering Sam Raimi's Darkman just yet, but we'll do Sam Raimi's Oz the Great and Powerful. And then the blockbuster from last year, Wicked, as we finish it off with Wicked for Good. That's all coming this October and November. And then for Platinum Level, we'll be covering in August and September the Fear Street series. I think this paired well with I Know What You Did Last Summer, since I Know What You Did Last Summer was kind of a teen novel in 1970, long before it was a movie. The Fear Street series are based off of a teen novel series. You know, when you grew out of Goosebumps, you went into Fear Street. And so there are 4 of those movies out now on Netflix. The most recent one just came out a couple weeks ago, Fear Street Prom Night. For Platinum Level donors of $35 or more, we will be reviewing the Fear Street quadrilogy. So you can find all the details on that at nowplayingpodcast.com/donate. We are also bringing out the Jurassic Park reviews again, since Jurassic Park Rebirth is coming. We will not be reviewing Rebirth until Stuart is better, but you can hear our old Jurassic Park reviews if you're watching those movies leading up to the new one, and then you'll get the Jurassic Park Rebirth review when Stuart is better. So again, all the details at nowplayingpodcast.com/donate. It is your support that keeps us going, keeps us on the air, keeps us sending money to Stuart throughout his entire recovery. Your donations are helping him as well as us. So thank you so much for your support of all of us and keeping the show going. And we have some donors we want to give shout outs to from Patreon and Podbean. I want to thank Comic Fan 96, ZBGB, Grand Canyon, Maddie B, Fisher, JA12, Scott, T Ward 1971, Seamus Finlayson, Hey You, and Random Chit.
We also got a shout out Kiefer 51, Cox J, Rudex, Chris Cross, T Costa 2176, J Clark Fisher, SG Harsh, Dimitri from Belgium, Now Playing Fan, Zana Reed, Neil McCahey, and George P.
Yeah, and let's give it up for Brandon Boldman, Tim Tracy, Nick, just Nick, not just any Nick, he's our Nick, Mark W, A.T. White, Nafe Williams. Thank you to Lucas Dosher, Lee Addison, Lee Drag, Jeffrey Gaudreau, and we couldn't do it without Martin Hibbets.
And also thanks to Stephen Bell, G. LaTorra Yates, A. Nick Hassuck, Jeremy Mills, Sean O'Keefe, Eileen Rivero, Michael Windsor, Joe Black, and Lucy Rodriguez.
Also Gerard Lavelle, Simon Brennan, Alejandro Avila, Sean Burgess, Don Andrus, Darker Hue Studios, Jeremy Smith, Kent Lyons, Rob Clark, and Trevor Harrison.
And Jeff Wade. Thank you, Andrew Doran. Thank you, Patrick. Jeff Gannon, that's my man right there. Chris Harris. Tom Ward, hope you're listening. Timothy Graham. Waji Bader. And we can't forget about you, Julian Lewis. Thank you so much.
I'm a little under the weather right now, so I'm not going to try to do my Dido impression and sing thank you without a license. My voice just can't handle it. But know that my heart is singing Dido to everyone we just named.
Yeah, you get 10 seconds of it if you want for common use.
That's what she said.
Hey.
Meanwhile, next week on the main feed, since we aren't going to be covering new theatrical releases, the three of us are going to celebrate another movie's 30th anniversary. I can't believe it was 30 years ago that I went to theaters to watch Species.
Mm-hmm.
I know, I still have the ticket.
Yet another series that I didn't realize was milked into non-existence well past the 2 I knew about.
Yeah, that's right, because this one's got 2 theatrical releases and 2 straight to, well, sci-fi.
Straight to something.
One of them still has Natasha Henstridge in it.
Amazingly.
She's in 3 of the 4 films.
Yeah, we'll talk about how much. I'm excited to get to that one. That'll be a good one, guys.
So we will be covering Species starting next week. This Friday, another rare Friday where we are not having a show. We'll be doing Congo for patrons next Friday and have a show every Friday again for quite a while. But haven't missed a Tuesday since before 2011. Not going to now. We're going to have Species, the quadrilogy, starting next week, and then the Da Vinci Code after that.
You know what? If you miss Now Playing this Friday, it's Friday the 13th. You know what I'm going to be doing? I'm going to queue up all those old ones. I'm going to listen to those original Friday the 13th reviews. That's going to be my Friday.
So thank you for listening. Thank you for joining us for the John Wick retrospective. Justin, Jason, thank you for dancing with us. And until next time, no more guns, John. No more bullets.
John Wick, excommunicado in effect in 3, 2, 1.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Now Playing's John Wick retrospective series. We hope you've enjoyed the show.
Well played, old friend.
For more movie review podcasts, visit the NowPlayingPodcast.com archives. There you'll find hundreds of film reviews including Die Hard, the Jason Bourne series, Constantine, Kingsman, Machete, the Marvel Comics movies, and more. And come back each week for another new movie review.
You got out once. You dipped so much as a pinky back into this pond. You may well find something reaches out and drags you back into its depths.
Now Playing relies on listener support to keep operating.
Let's go to the vault.
We have released over 150 donation podcasts. Available there are series like The Matrix, the Quentin Tarantino films, Planet of the Apes, Jurassic Park, Aliens, and much more. Links are available from NowPlayingPodcast.com.
I need your help.
After this, we are less than even.
You can also join our crowdfunding campaign to help our show grow. Patrons of $10 or more get a new exclusive movie review every month, plus even more perks, including one where you can pick a movie for our hosts to review. Find the details on our website.
You have no idea what's coming to you.
Also at NowPlayingPodcast.com/book, you can order Now Playing's film review collection, Underrated Movies We Recommend. This book has 125 reviews about films you probably haven't seen, but you should.
Oh, and remember, you owe me. You don't want me owing you.
You can also follow Now Playing on Facebook and Twitter. There, the hosts post new episode announcements, movie reviews, and contests where you can win movies and soundtracks.
Tell me, Mr. Wick, is this a formal event or a social affair?
Social.
You can also help out Now Playing by leaving us a 5-star review on iTunes. A link to Now Playing's iTunes listing can be found at NowPlayingPodcast.com.
I'll try and do the same.
Now Playing's John Wick series is produced by Arnie Carvalho.
You are now in the presence, the motherfucking king!
Associate produced by Jason Latham.
You do realize that I'm management now, right? So I don't go around shooting people in the head.
Now Playing is edited by Heath, Santiago, and Arnie.
Sometimes you gotta cut 'em, mother.
Now Playing's John Wick series credit narration by Brock.
Shall I announce you? Yes, please.
The John Wick films and all the audio and music used in this show are the property of their respective copyright holders, and no infringement is intended.
Mr. Wick broke the rules. Do you understand the repercussions if he survives?
The opinions expressed on Now Playing are those of the individual hosts and may not reflect the opinion of Venganza Media Incorporated.
What he said. Enough.
Now Playing is a Venganza Media production, copyright 2025, and no part of this show may be reproduced, repurposed, or redistributed without the written permission of Venganza Media Incorporated.
You done, Viggo?
We're done.
The Batman Arkham series is kind of the one I thought about, maybe switching over playing Catwoman. That's what you do here.
I think that's the epitome of it, but playing Mary Jane in Spider-Man 2 was torturous.
Okay, this is the Wick side quest.
Oh.
You get to play as Mary Jane? What does she do?
She has a taser.
Ooh.
Okay.